So much good stuff.
He didn't cry. Like, I might have cried. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Jada Pinkett Smith has a lot of stubble.
I actually don't know what she looks like.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to Swallow.
Buckle up, baby.
Oh my God, that was the longest pregame setup we've ever had.
Yeah.
We just set up for the last, not because it was hard, just because we were busy.
And we hardly even talked. We didn't even talk about the good stuff.
We want to save the good stuff. Yeah. So much good stuff. What do you want to start with today?
By the time this comes out, the Will Smith thing might be old already, but we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
You went on stage last night at Comedy Central at Stand Up New York last night.
I went on stage last night at Comedy Central.
You opened for Elon Gold.
Yep.
We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
And
I like this little summary. Stay tuned for the bullet points. But let's cover the hot topics while they're still hot. They won't be next week, and we will be right on.
So here's my idea for the Will Smith thing. So we don't have to listen to each other. We'll just say our takes at the same time, and then we'll move on.
Go first.
There you go. What do you think?
Well, I don't even understand why there's a conversation to be had other than the fact that it was such a moment.
Yeah.
There's no debate. He's a fucking animal. What did he did that? That is just like, we know it's ABC's kid stuff. You don't get up and hit somebody even if you don't like what they say.
Yeah.
There's all this confusing argument going on. How offensive was the joke? It wasn't that, like, when people say it wasn't that offensive, it's like, oh, but if it was, he could get up and smack him.
Yeah.
Did you see Jim Carrey being interviewed about it? They asked him on some morning show. I was absolutely appalled. I mean, this was just so appalling. And it finally cast us in the proper shadow. It was the final straw that just told all of us in Hollywood, we're not in the cool club anymore.
Wow.
It's done. We're done. This is ridiculous.
Wow.
And the fact that two things, he hit him.
Yeah.
And everyone just kind of was so spineless.
Yeah.
And Jim Carrey called this out. Was just like, I'm uncomfortable. And nobody defended Chris Rock, and he should have been taken out of the building.
Yeah.
And they were just, and then his speech at the end where he's like, I protect my family, and that's what happened, without an apology to Chris Rock. It was embarrassing, and he laughed at the joke. Then he looks over at Jada, and she checks him. Yeah. I'm telling you, you could see his, he laughed at the joke saying, oh, we're supposed to just laugh at offensive jokes. He looks at her, she makes a face. Mm-hmm. There's something terribly wrong with their relationship. Everybody knows it. He's a deeply insecure person, Will Smith. Every time he talks and is interviewed about himself, he focuses so much more on the fame and the movie stardom of his career as opposed to the acting. I wanted to be the biggest in the world. I just wanted to, and it's never enough. He never has enough. He's got a failed marriage, clearly, and such deep insecurities that he felt he had to do that. I don't even think he was that angry. I think he was more angry at whatever the current state of his relationship is, and he took that out, and he lost control, I guess. There's no defending it. It did do all the bad things it did. It ruined the whole thing, and Jim Carrey said, if I was Chris Rock, I would have sued Will Smith for $200 million because this will live on forever. This will be in perpetuity forever. That image, that idea will be there forever. Yeah.
Chris Rock handled himself like a pro, like a gentleman.
Will Smith just smacked the shit out of me.
I mean, I heard on the watch, someone was like, can you imagine if he would have hit Will Smith back and they were fighting on stage? Like, that would have been awful.
First of all,
he handled himself so well. Yeah.
Everybody should watch Andrew Schultz's roast of Will Smith because the comedians rallied to defend Will Smith, and Andrew Schultz did the greatest roast at the intro of the Flagrant 2 podcast covering this subject.
I'll put it in. We're doing links now. I'll put the link in.
We can watch it later. You'll die. Yeah. I mean, he was wearing like a night. He was wearing a full night outfit the whole show. He's like, the whole episode, we have all gathered together to defend our brother, Chris Rock. So here's what we're going to do. And he roasts Will Smith, and it's beautiful. It's like a beautiful piece of comedy. But what were you saying? You were saying that he handles himself well.
Yeah, Chris Rock handled himself very well.
Can you imagine all the things Chris Rock said to himself in the car as a comic of responses by words that he could have used on Will Smith? Because I thought of them. He could have just looked at him and been been serious for a second. Hurt people.
Did you hear what he said after? I think he said that was a G.I. Jane joke. I coulda, and then he stopped. He stopped himself. He was about to say what I could have said was, but I was so impressed with his just lack of response. Like that's a lot of what I took away.
Where I felt bad for him was you're so stunned in that moment that he felt what bothers me about it. I thought, of course, he handled it beautifully and as a professional. But the fact that he's getting, you got to hear me out here, the fact that he's getting this praise and applause for handling it well, I think speaks poorly and highlights the disrespect that people have for comics. Because it's like, thank you for making us all still feel comfortable, Chris. Even though you had to take a physical assault. He was able to carry on the show. And it's like, God forbid we should all sit with that for a second. We need Chris to rescue us, even though he's the one who took the punch. Yeah. Well, do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I'm not even talking about what he said afterwards, just that he stood there and didn't hit back. He didn't cry. Like, I might have cried. Like, that's like humiliating.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not even talking about like bringing the energy back up. Like, he did as well as he can. I just mean,
he said Will Smith just smacked
he had his hands behind his back. His face went the other way, and he was like.
Well, also he thought it was obviously some kind of, he was trusting. He has leaned into it.
Yeah.
And it was such a violation of what the hell was going on.
Yeah. He didn't put his hands up. Like. No, go ahead.
No, the fact that when Will Smith did the keep my wife's name out your mouth, and like then you knew, fuck. And he's like, I'm going to.
Yeah.
And like, there's that moment when I just think we have to take a minute before we start applauding Chris Rock because he deserves it.
Yeah.
But look to ourselves and say to ourselves, the victim wasn't us for being uncomfortable, even though he saved us and he didn't have to.
Right.
He got assaulted.
Yeah.
He got smacked in the face. He could have, should have just walked away, leaving us all with that. But he took another punch for the team and just carried on.
Yeah.
And he deserves praise for that. And we deserve to also look into ourselves and say, maybe the audience's comfort is not the most important thing when you're getting physically attacked.
So that's the part that I'm most fascinated by is outside sort of both of them personally as celebrities is, I mean, if you think about it, it's pretty remarkable that he was allowed to stay in the building. I mean, imagine if I think Tim Dillon said that if J.K. Simmons walked up. You know, like if an old white guy walked up and slapped Chris Rock,
listen, don't make a joke about me.
You can't assault an artist in a venue and stay and stay there. Like it's pretty wild why he was even allowed to stay at all. But there is something there was something there when he got up and slapped Chris Rock for making a joke about his wife. I think everybody's instinct was there's something right about this.
Oh God.
So let me explain. It's not that somebody attacks a comedian on stage for making a joke, but the whole thing is a delusion. The Oscars is a delusion. Hollywood is a delusion. The fact that they are these incredibly rich, incredibly powerful, incredibly famous people sitting in these seats, waiting to be given an award that they don't need and means nothing. Is all a delusion. Like the fact that they're making up stories and then people are rewarding them for it. They're dressing up in these tuxes. Like the whole thing is insane. And then for some reason this sort of thing has become popular where like we invite all these people to this venue. We celebrate them, but then we have one of them go on stage and tear them down by making jokes, like by roasting them. The whole thing is very strange and isn't real and doesn't make any sense on like a human level. It's just this construct that we've learned to sort of appreciate. It's this cultural institution that we appreciate for what it is. And I think when he broke that fourth wall and got on stage and slapped another human for making fun of his human wife, everyone was like, "Oh, that makes sense. That part of it does make sense." And in terms of like we're all kind of watching America in decline. To me, it was this moment of like the Oscars. All America might be remembered for at some point is Hollywood and the Hollywood movie star. And like this was like a nick in this, like when you see the chart in 100 years of like America's decline, this point might be like where it starts going down of like this institution was cracked. Right. The Oscars cracked when he got on stage and slapped Chris Rock. Hollywood and stardom and celebrity cracked. And I think everyone saw that and was like, for a moment, like, no, don't kick him out. Like that part of it kind of works.
Okay.
I'm not,
Time for the rebuttal.
I'm not talking about rights and like who can make jokes
No,
about
no,
who
no,
and,
no.
and who can assault.
You're just saying what it culturally meant.
It felt.
You're saying
it felt like it made sense. Yeah.
What you said is very narrowly true in the sense that what happened was just consistent with the bullshit of it all.
No, it was inconsistent with the bullshit of it all.
Not really, though, because this idea that Will Smith believes he can just get away with that, and he did, sums up the bullshit of it all. I think it exemplifies that these people think, these elitist Hollywood people think they are above the law and above societal norms, and they can just do that, and they can.
And he did, yeah.
So I think it's the opposite. I think when he thinks he can get up there and slap the host, then he sits down, nothing happens, Will Smith is comforted and then given Best Actor, and people sheepishly and cowardly clap because they just want to be. It sums up what it's all about, and the rest of us watching, it draws a line in the sand like, it's the end. It's over.
It sums it up, but now we're talking about how it's wrong. So it's proving itself wrong.
Exactly, but I'm just saying it's not that Will Smith's. It's not like what Will Smith did was right. It summed up everything that's wrong and the response to it.
I mean,
let that stew.
If a guy outside of that context walked up to you and your wife and made fun of your wife's medical condition, it wouldn't be on a certain level.
First of all,
it wouldn't be inappropriate to assault him. Like
Jada Pinkett Smith has a lot of stubble.
I actually don't know what she looks like. I mean, I know who she is, but I haven't seen.
So she says she's got alopecia, which is bald, which is hair loss.
Yeah. Are you saying she doesn't really have alopecia? Yeah, you heard it here, folks.
I'm saying there's an awful lot of stubble, and where there's stubble, there's fire. Where there's stubble, there's hair. We know this. We know this.
Right.
So anyway, and the truth is, I'm not even so sure he knows she has alopecia or thought maybe she was shaving for a role. And either way, but this idea that it's a medical condition. We make fun of people for the way they look all the time, and it's acceptable, and it was light, and it's all in good. It's good-hearted. Like you make fun of people's bushy eyebrows or nose. I mean, someone's nose they can't control. You can't control a medical condition. You ever watch the Comedy Central roast? They're brutal.
But it's the same thing.
Molly Madeline, are you even listening to me?
If it was at an office party, it would also be inappropriate to go up. It would be like, people get made fun of at office, but office parties are also this weird delusional construct of like we put on suits and pretend to be friends with each other.
So that's what I wanted to speak to. You're speaking to the general theater of life. Like we do a lot of these things that are pure part of story and theater, but that's life.
But this might be the pinnacle of the theater of life.
Yes, because it's about fake stuff.
It's about theater. It's theater about theater.
Like a wedding, a real thing is happening, but you're putting on this whole show, and you don't want to disrupt that when somebody gets up and makes an awkward speech at the wedding or disrupts the aisle or the service or the ceremony.
But it's wonderful when it happens.
Because it breaks. It violates.
It feels human.
It feels human, but it violates that. There is a sacred space in which there's decorum, and there's also like right and wrong. You can't hit people.
But that sacred space has been co-opted. The Oscars take what church should be and use it for themselves. Like if it happened in church, it would be weird. But they've stolen church, so when it happens there, it's kind of wonderful.
But so what I'm saying is, I actually think what you're saying is what this whole incident demonstrated is how detached and removed the Oscars and the Oscars culture and Hollywood culture is from societal norms. Mm-hmm. How many people watch these movies that won? Nobody cares anymore.
Right.
They're not hits. Nobody cares. There's the commercial. There's the world that we are in. There's TikTok. There's social media. There's people trending. There's things that are happening. And then there's these guys who are basically ivory tower artists making their shit that nobody cares about. So they clap. So it's not that I didn't want to see Chris Rock take a hit for it, but at least it proved themselves wrong in the way they handled Will Smith. That was the whole thing. You were like, he sits down and then they just clap. They looked so pathetic.
Yeah.
And I applaud Chris Rock from doing that, for handling himself. But like the fact that he felt he needed to be responsible as like the presenter to keep it going, it's like you deserve so much more credit, even more than he's getting, just because it's almost like he doesn't have to do that. We don't have to. It's not our right to continue to feel comfortable when someone just got physically assaulted.
Yeah.
It's one thing if something in the room went down and he persevered and he plowed through.
Yeah.
But you can't ask an entertainer to take physical abuse.
Right.
It's just like that's over the line.
Yeah.
The lights go out, something happens, somebody weird here happens, somebody shouts something out, and he makes it through great. Like you got to work with that.
Right.
But don't take a punch.
So the other part of it also is that is like you said, movies now feel less relevant and less important than they ever have.
Yeah.
And so the Oscar that the etiquette of the Oscars being so broken in that way also felt sort of appropriate because the whole thing
so I think,
is less important than it used to be.
But saying it felt right is the wrong word. It just felt like accurate to what we're watching.
Accurate.
Fitting.
It felt fitting and accurate.
But also and the lack of moral character within Hollywood. The fact that people couldn't all unequivocally condemn this. They were interviewing people afterwards. Yeah, I mean, I think Will did what he had to do. I'm like, there were people who were morally confused about this. Not because they didn't know what happened or if it wasn't. But they knew, and they're spineless.
Well, because it was because you saw a crazy person do something crazy. It didn't feel like a moral thing.
It did though, in the sense that all of this talk about toxic masculinity and without the talk of masculinity. In other words, there's toxic masculinity, maybe, whatever.
Yeah.
But there's also masculinity, which is a virtuous thing. Standing up to aggression.
Yeah.
Having moral clarity. No, you can't do that. And the fact that people are so confused about this.
Right. Yeah.
You know.
I agree. I mean, I think probably
it highlights that confusion.
What makes it more confusing, it was the Oscars has been trying to be more inclusive, and two people of color have an altercation on stage. Yeah. So what do we do now? Like, great. What are we gonna do? Kick these two black icons out of our venue? Like,
well, not two.
It's
just
confusing. Right, or even one. Like we're trying here.
The answer is yes.
I'm
glad there's no racial confusion about it. Like it wasn't like he went up and slapped a white guy or whatever.
Yeah, that's
because
true.
Then we would have been having a useless, meaningless, irrelevant conversation about that.
Yeah.
Can't say it was that.
Right.
Can't say, imagine how shameful Hollywood would look if it was a white person that he slapped and people were like defending him that much more. Like it would have been just so much uglier.
Yeah. Something I thought about also was, Chris Rock talks about like growing up like poor in DC. And I was like, like when you grow up in a rough neighborhood and you get like, it's not the first time he's been punched in the face.
He talks about it all the time.
Like showed.
He talked about it in he went to therapy for like getting bullied all the time. He's a small guy.
Like if I got punched in the face like that, I would be shocked. He kind of seemed to know what to do with himself.
Right. He was just like,
all right,
Will Smith that
sucks.
I was amazed. I mean, I think that the meme culture. Within 10 minutes, there were full-blown remixes with drops and EDM tracks on TikTok. Will Smith just smacked the shit out of me. Yeah. I'm like, man. And then like Nicole Kidman, a new meme is born. Like everybody got the stills. It's like a feeding frenzy of the online news space. It was like, this happened. That was hilarious.
It'd be amazing if the Oscars just came back and it was basically the VMAs next year. Like everyone just wore like t-shirts and pants and they're just like, we're done with all this now. One
of the comments was so funny. It was like, this is some early 2000s shit. I love it. And Tim Dillon, of course, he posted, there is a God. Just because he loves
Kanye walked away a big winner also. Like
exactly.
That's how a gentleman handles it.
It's like he just got on, got off. I mean, oh my God. Anyway, so that's our hot take on that. We actually agree. I hear what you were saying, and I think we crystallized
I didn't even realize there was the comedian's take on it until I saw your meme about it.
What, that they were all
like, oh, great comedians can't say jokes now. I didn't even consider that.
I mean, because we'll shift into comedy.
Yeah.
In being a musician and being a comic, like, I have seen that, one can make an argument that there's no more disrespected artist than the comic because you give the audience this impression that we're just shooting the shit and there's not an act that's been worked out and slaved over being presented to an audience. And chefs get disrespected. Somebody doesn't like something, whatever. But in the moment, in real time during a live performance, heckling, like at concerts, the music can kind of take care of heckles. You just play through it. But with comedy, everything is dependent on timing and space and silence and dynamics. So comics get disrespected all the time, and people do come on stage. They get drunk and they violate that space. So everybody's rallying around. This is the ultimate violation.
Do you think there's like a hecklers community that feels empowered now? Like they're getting together. Finally.
Some comics are like, this is going to cause people to feel empowered to get up on stage and hit comics.
I think it will.
I don't know. In the end, he doesn't look very good. We'll see. Yeah. It takes only unique types of people in the regular population to do this, but they're all like, "Fuck you, Will." Like what it is like Chris Rock comes from the comedians community, so those like the comedians of Hollywood that really are like at home in the club more. And Chris Rock does a lot of movies. Obviously, he's a movie star too, but he's a comic. So like, what's interesting is like they're the people in Hollywood that are kind of looking around like Jerry Seinfeld said, like, we don't feel like we're supposed to be here, by the way. We should be sitting in the back. Like, what the hell is this?
Interesting.
You know, because they spend time, they still have to go back to the clubs. They perform live. And
they're around real people.
And they're not actors. Yeah. They sometimes do act, but actors by nature are a lot more, even more insecure, and they're always like being directed. And I've seen it in their working on sets, and everything is like protected and polished and pre-recorded, and you're never live in front of the audience. So comedians sort of have a different angle on this. And obviously come to his defense, seeing this as the ultimate Hollywood elitist versus comedy, you know, the war on comedy kind of thing that you can get away with it. But so they rallied around him.
Yeah.
But speaking of comedy.
Yeah. So
we had an interesting night last night.
Yeah.
I performed stand-up at Standup New York.
I was there.
Michael was there. I did one of Michael's jokes in there in the set, and it worked.
Killed. Crushed.
It crushed. Got me a standing ovation.
It was a laugh. It got a laugh.
I don't know what to say about it. What do you want to say?
Yeah. What do I want to say?
Yeah.
It was cool to see you do it.
Mm-hmm.
It was cool to see you get a great response. It was cool to see you have fun.
How good was it, though? Like, on a scale of amazing to phenomenal.
I'll give it like on the scale of how the night itself went.
Yeah.
Like, let's say the headliner Elon Gold was a 10 because it was his night.
Yeah.
And he did a good show.
Sure.
Like how much better could it have gone for you? Like, I would have to give it like an 8 or 9. I don't think it could have gone.
Thank you.
No, I shouldn't say that. I would give it like it could have been a 10. Like, it could have been like an amazing and the jokes were like killer, and like you killed it, and everyone's like, I'm gonna go see Ami's show next. But just in terms of how good it could have gone for you at the stage that you're at, I don't think it could have gone that much better for you. Like, you had fun, people liked you, people were cracking up. Like, I think you were the best opener. People, I think, had the most fun during your opening set. And there were other good comics. So like, I think you should be really proud.
Okay.
Yeah. What is that?
We can end the segment there.
Is that a good review?
That's a very nice review, Michael.
I was really happy for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I felt great.
Yeah.
Not in some sort of like, I'm just being honest with how I felt doing it.
That's what I'm
it's
saying.
More like, not to toot my own horn, I did feel good, and it was the first time like I was doing comedy, and I enjoyed it. Like, I got to that point where I had worked stuff out enough that I put in enough time into the material that I could just like assess how I feel about stand-up from a pure prepared performance standpoint, and it does feel great, and I had a good time, and I'm performing again tonight.
Right.
And I don't want to make the mistake of feeling invincible to a bomb.
Right.
Even though you have one good set, I know seasoned performers and whatever, I know like you're one show away from like you're only as good as your next bomb, and then you hop back on it. So I don't want to feel like I'll just kill tonight because last night went well. So I don't want to even talk about it like that. I'm still gonna get into my head and do it, but it's just a fascinating, interesting endeavor and experience. Yeah. And it's a testament to like the things we talk about, like doing affirmations yourself and committing to things, and I've been committing to like getting to that. I was at Stand-Up New York a few weeks ago seeing a friend perform, and I'm like, and it doesn't just happen. There are things that point to it, but I was able to be on that side of it. And that's what I just wanted to do for a while. Be on that side of it, on the stage, performing stand-up for a live audience and seeing how I fare and getting over that little bit of imposter syndrome to do it. And that was very big for me in terms of feeling like I belong on here in this zone to do this. And I'm just gonna keep at it, head down and doing it.
It's really cool. So I have two things. One is, I think probably last time we went to a comedy club together, you were sitting in the audience going, man, I really got to start doing this because it's going to be too late soon.
Yeah.
So it was very cool.
When was that? Because I thought we went to Old Man
probably
Hustle.
When we saw.
You're talking about Schultz?
We went to a show together, Yes. So it was very cool seeing you waiting with the other comics on the side of the stage, waiting to get on stage. That was very cool for me. And I also have that like instinct to be like, I could do this and like I could be good at this, but it's not. I don't have the drive to. I don't want it.
I would love to see you do it though. I think if you got to a comfort level where you could deliver your jokes.
I want to try purely as
you did it once.
Yeah, I did it once. I want to be that guy who's in the comedy scene with no ambitions to be like a professional comic, just like a guy who hangs at the club who does sets.
But you were a writer. You could write.
Yeah. But I'm saying, but I don't have the ambition to like. I mean, I have my own ambitions.
Right.
Like I watch the Oscars and I'm like, I want to be sitting in that seat being nominated. Like that's how I feel.
As a what?
As a writer,
Right.
or like director. But I don't sit in the comedy club going like, man, I want my own show. So I have different things.
Yeah.
The second thing was, how much better do you think your set was last night than it would have been, having done all the work, than it would have been if you hadn't done any of the work and Elon Gold DM'd you and said, hey man, I'm going to be in New York. You think you could do 5 minutes? Having not done any of the work.
It would have been. You know, with an audience, a real audience, what you learn in comedy is like when you work stuff out at open mics and in front of like other comics, it's one thing, and then at a show's energy, maybe the impressions could have saved me, but
Because you had got on stage at like pace-off programs, right?
Oh God, don't bring that up.
You can't compare it?
I bombed.
Oh, I thought you did well.
No.
Oh.
I wasn't supposed to get up at like one of these things that I did once. That was a disaster. It's like a trauma for me, but it's good. It's part of my little fabric of a story that I got up in the wrong context. I was asked to do it last minute. So I was like, all right, let me see if I can do this. Stand up. You go out there unprepared. You could have beginner's luck, but the chances of bombing would have been very high.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've learned a lot before I got on this set. So like,
what's something you learned from doing your set at open mics?
Like joke structure and writing is so important.
So specifically, is there something you changed from the first show to last night that wasn't working?
I think it's just tightening up and process, like taking stuff that I think is kind of funny and really mapping it out to know where, like trimming all the fat down so that I know what I'm doing. And it takes time to just find your voice on stage, like what that is going to be. It's not just conversational. I mean, if you come around full circle to it feeling that way. We watch these like Netflix specials where you see these like headliner acts, and that's different than a tight five.
Yeah.
You know, you get these guys and they're loose and, you know, working with the crowd and stuff, but you get a tight five. You don't have people who know you yet. It's a whole different approach to doing that and a different strategy going in. Every line has to carry some intention of funny in it in some way. So I wasn't even conscious of those things if I was just asked last minute to do something. I've been asked in the past in front of audiences, like just impressions, like give me your best this, and I can improv and have fun in those. I don't know if I could do 5 minutes or set. I did like 8 minutes last night, but I don't think I could do 8 minutes of that without, I mean, I would have been even, to the extent that I was anxious about it, I would have been shitting my pants if I had, but the truth is I wouldn't have known how like prepared I have to be. I don't think the chances of it not going well would have been, or maybe well enough to like pass for an audience, but not be legit, not past the legitimate factor of like proper stand-up to me. And I don't think you have to necessarily get too caught up in what proper stand-up is, but there is a sense of like, you know, like you said, the other comics were like laughing at some of the stuff I was saying too. Like, you know, when you're in it, you can recognize how somebody's doing it and what their writing is. You know, it's a funny thing when you get there and you hear the laughs, like you're aiming for that. So like you expect them before they do. And it's different than being funny casually and socially. Because when you're casually and socially funny, it just comes to you. But in this, like you're doing an act. So all of that consciousness about the technical aspect of writing stand-up and performing it, I've had more time to work out. So
right.
Does that answer the question? So
not really.
Do I think it would have bombed? It's possible. Very possible.
Yeah, not bomb. Yeah, no. You
and I would have been very uncomfortable.
You did answer the question. Because I'm always interested in hearing the real nitty gritty from writers, but especially stand-ups of like, Akash Singh talked about this a little bit. About like I mean like literally, is there a line that you thought was working and you went to open mics and it didn't get laughs and you're like, I gotta trim that out, or like I gotta move that here or there, where like you know, you wouldn't know that unless you literally workshopped it with the crowd.
Everything that I did, it's not what I first started doing. I've tweaked things. I used
so from Tyler's show till tonight.
I've definitely tweaked things and set things up a little better and said, well, this needs a little more of this, and actually take that word out. I don't need to say like filler words, like anyway. So like I don't know, like all that stuff can go out. You can just breathe. There was a lot of fat that was trimmed out of like talking, like, you know, filling in that space because you get a little. And I saw a funny thing with like Mark Norman, who was talking about like advice for comics. It's like, you just got to write, you know, write. And when you're in that space and you're feeling a little uncomfortable, push a little more in that joke. Just keep pushing it through, because then what happens is you get into like no man's land and it forces you back into yourself. And then you can kind of be loose again. Even though you're afraid, now you're like, okay. And then like it forces you to be yourself again. So he was giving these interesting, does that make sense? Like when you're on stage and you're trying a bit, oftentimes you get scared of the bit. Like, it's not happening out and you retreat. Yeah. You try the bit out, but he says push through that and play with it more. Yeah. And then the audience goes with you. So a lot of it is comedy is confidence, plus preparation, but confidence. Right. Like, I believe in this bit, and if you don't, you don't. But the confidence can kind of take people.
My favorite thing is seeing someone like Eli last night. He's so comfortable just treating the stage and the audience like basically like they're robots. Like he's not afraid of silence. Right. And he's just working out his thing up there. Right. And I love seeing comedians do that. Yeah. Just like, I mean, to get to a place like that must be really nice where you're like, I have the set coming on, I'm gonna try this thing out, see what happens. Yeah. And
takes balls.
Yeah, and time, he's probably done it for a few years.
He was on a season of Curb with Elon. He's on this past season.
Like a whole season, or
I don't know. I don't watch the show, but
that's
you
pretty
do, right?
Cool. No, I don't.
I think
watch
people
it.
recognize him outside. We're making.
I don't watch it. I've obviously seen. I don't. Have you ever seen an episode?
What?
Have you ever seen an episode
of Curb?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I've watched. I'm like 3 seasons behind. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Not my favorite kind of humor. I mean, I appreciate Curb, but it's also like uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Was there any other hot topics for this week's episode? We're gonna wrap up shortly because we're pressed.
Did I have a?
But it's.
Oh, I mean, Elon Gold was so funny. I have to say, he was really funny.
Very tight writing and.
Some of the stuff, like he introduces it, and you're just like waiting to cringe because it's so like packaged and like, but like, God bless him, he made me laugh.
Yeah, I was cracking up.
The Rodney Dangerfield thing.
Oh, I love that.
Really funny.
I love that, and also like it's fun. What he's cultivated with our community, the Yidden, the Jews. It's like you can. There's so much funny there, but you can only do that. The truth is, you can do a lot more than you think probably with the secular audience, and they find it funny. You just invite them into your world, but you can go. You don't have to work as hard in terms of like setup. Yeah. For religious Rodney. Yeah. It was just, that was great. I was dying from that.
I was also pretty shocked. We talked about this a little bit, but I guess I'm not exposed to this, but how right Trump leaning the like From world is.
You're not aware of that?
How would I be? Where?
I mean, you must be like aware.
I'm aware of it in like.
So many people love him.
I'm aware of it in the Hasidic world of it, but I'm not really exposed to like the yeshivish 5 towns sort of world.
But what would you have assumed?
No, I guess I've heard it, but I've never experienced it firsthand. Of like all your references to like Alex Jones and like all your right wing references.
I do Jordan Peterson tonight.
Very, very well received.
Were they? Because when I did Alex, it was just quiet. Maybe it's just too overwhelming an impression.
Well, I guess Alex Jones is like alt right. He's not like.
But the few laughs I get, I pointed them out, which I kind of like that. I did that. Yeah. We have identified the alt right.
Yeah, that was funny. Yeah, no, I think you did really well. But no, like I mean, anytime anyone mentioned Trump, there were like claps, and like the women were like clapping for Trump. It was like It was interesting. It was interesting.
2024.
Yeah.
He's gonna
run.
God.
I paid $75 for my tank of gas today. Wow. I'm like, the Democrats aren't going to win again.
Here's the thing: if you could have designed, forget where you stand. If you love Biden, you're a Democrat. If you could have designed a worse term, you couldn't. You couldn't have designed a worse term for a president.
Yeah, the brink of nuclear war.
Everything they said was going to go wrong in Trump's time, all this horrible disaster, end of the world thing, is actually happening now.
It's possible Trump did design it.
All I'm saying is, like, in almost every dimension, foreign policy, gas prices,
even
everything.
Will Smith
got so aggravated.
We lost Will Smith.
We lost Will Smith. Just the idea of like things that people can actually see and feel, not like, the inflation rate and the debt ceiling is off the charts. Yeah. You can say that to an audience. You could say that to voters. They're like, I don't know, everything seems fine. And you could make up the stuff. Oh, what Obama's been doing is drone strikes and this and that. But people don't care. Yeah. They care like, holy crap. Like they care during Jimmy Carter's administration when there's hostages and you can see it and the gas prices are off the charts. And there's a plane full of people hanging off.
Yeah. I don't.
It's not that we have bad leaders internationally. It's that our leaders are dumb, folks. They're dumb and they don't know what they're doing.
Elon Gold had a really funny line.
I saw his
like,
trumpets.
He's like, Putin, I hate him, but I like him.
I hate him, but I like him. But I hate him, but I like him.
It was really funny.
Everyone's got different Trump impressions. That's what I love.
He kind of looks. He's got like a Trump. His lips are like Trumpy.
People do Trump accurately in so many different ways.
So funny, yeah.
I hate him, but I like him because of this China. It's like he pushes that part. Some people are like, I go like, well, I'll tell you what, folks, they don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they're doing. I tell you that leaders are dumb, folks. Very dumb. Remember we saw Tyler's impression of him? They're racist. He's like they're talking. When he says something like horrible, he goes loud. And when he says something nice, he's like, I love the people. They're beautiful people. But these other people, they're racist. They're terrible, folks. They don't know what they're doing. And then there's other guys. There's this guy on SNL who does a great Trump. I don't know if you've seen that guy. No. Oh my God. He does like so what are you saying? He does the lips, the person, when he talks. And he's like, when these people, they don't know what they're doing. There's like old school Trump from the 90s. It's very kind of different, folks. Very different. Yeah. And I just love it. There's a million of them out there. Yeah. We are here, and everybody kind of tries to pick apart people's different things. Okay. But it was,
and then the host was made like a joke against Biden, which I just kind of that came out of nowhere.
Yeah, but people loved it.
It's funny, like people who leave the Orthodox world, you'd expect them to also become like super liberal because that's just like hip.
Yeah, right.
But like when they leave the Orthodox world, but then like remain politically Orthodox, I find very funny.
One thing I've been bothered by. It's just like the cringe factor of sometimes at these open mics, people are like so liberal in New York City.
Yeah. And
I'm like, that's not brave or funny.
Yeah.
It reminds me of like when someone did a bit about criticizing Harry Potter in front of Norm Macdonald about comparing it to the Bible and how it's about magic. Harry Potter made some jokes knocking it, how it's just like the Bible and it's all bullshit, haha. And Norm Macdonald responds as the judge. Do you see that? And he goes, J.K. Rowling said that, she said that her book was actually very much inspired by Christian theology. So I didn't like the joke at all. I didn't think it was funny at all. And he like destroys this person.
I've heard him say actually before he died. Like he's like, I read the Bible every night. He was like really into the Bible before he died.
Yeah, but you don't know. No,
he was serious.
You don't know what's real.
I think he was serious. Yeah. He's like, I'm very moved by the stories. The stories are incredible.
Incredible. I don't even have.
He's like, but don't get this guy started on stories. Oh my God, the stories in the Holocaust with the planes going over the camps and how the gas chambers couldn't possibly don't get this guy started on the Holocaust. Jeez, and like he just totally throws his co-host under the bus.
He's like, I'm not a Holocaust denier at all. That show
he's like, I'm Jewish.
I missed that show. Yeah, this guy is a Holocaust denier.
Yeah, bring up numbers. Hitler. Yeah, bring up numbers. I keep telling him 6 million.
He's like, he's like, would you kill Hitler? He's like, but he's dead. I didn't even know he was sick. Norm Macdonald. Oh my God!
Where did he say that?
It's on. There's clips funny. All over of that amazing show. Is it his Netflix show? It's just his online show.
No, it was like online. I think it was on YouTube.
I didn't even know he was sick. He was a terrible man, though. You can't touch the guy. It's just like a genius.
I think I'm gonna do if I do that. There's a event at a shul at a synagogue where it's called secondhand comedy. Mm-hmm. Where everyone picks a stand-up bit to do. I think I'm going to do Norm Macdonald.
That's very brave to do Norm.
I'm going to do his Hitler joke about Hitler's dog. You know that joke?
Go ahead.
How where he's like, Hitler had a dog. So there was at least one living thing in this world that was like, oh my God, Hitler's coming home. Oh my God. No, guys, you don't understand. Hitler's the best. I love Hitler. And like he comes home and licks Hitler's face. And he's just talking about how much Hitler's dog loved Hitler. And I think it's great.
That's a great joke. I wish you best of luck with an Orthodox Jewish crowd and Hitler's dog.
Thanks.
Thank you for coming out last night, Michael, and thank you for the support.
You're welcome, man. It's my pleasure.
Being my co-host.
It's my pleasure.
And for filming me and taking your mother-in-law with you as your date.
Yes, she's a fan of the pod.
Big fan of the pod. We didn't talk about her as much as she wanted us to today.
No. Well, I called all her listeners, and she was the only one who wanted to come. So
I love when we met at, I think it was the Briss. She comes up to me and goes, maybe, I don't remember what it was, but she was like proving her fandom. She was like, I'm a boomer and I have trouble getting up, just like you said. Yeah. I take a long time. So cute. And
This is
and
great.
thank you for the insomnia cookie that I was able to finish myself.
You're welcome.
Got some friends coming tonight too, so it should be good.
All right.
That is episode 24.
24 next week, the 25th anniversary of our first
pod.
Well,
it's going well.
That's what an anniversary is, right? 25th time you do something.